Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. And in this video I'll be telling you about all the new features that were announced during Minecraft Live 2023, which just happened today. And so we got our very first look at some of the new features for Minecraft 1.21, including the new trial chamber structure, the crafter, which you can use to auto craft, and also the hostile mob, the breeze. And of course there is also the mob vote. It was won by the Armadillo, which was a surprise to me and probably to many others as well. It was probably very close between the crab and the Armadillo. Personally I voted for the crab, but also the Armadillo is a great mob with of course the great feature of the wolf armor. If you want to know more about the mob vote, then check out the video in the top right of your screen. But in this video we'll be focusing on the new features for 1.21, the trial chambers, all of those new blocks, the new crafter, and also the breeze. So without any further ado, let's get straight into it. And so the main feature that was announced is of course the trial chamber structure. And it is also the stage of most of the video from Minecraft Live. So here's the trial chamber. And it consists mostly of deepslate blocks and copper blocks, and has new variants of both of these types of blocks. And so in general, this structure will be procedurally generated, which means that going through this structure will pretty much be a unique experience for everyone. And so what they said during the stream was actually that this is mostly focused on combat-loving players. And so it focuses a lot on combat and trying to beat this sort of dungeon to get some amazing rewards. And of course also these amazing new blocks as well. So for example, here on the bottom deepslate level, you can see that there are new deepslate blocks. And of course you can also see the new copper lamps, or copper bulbs as they call them. And so what we're seeing currently is actually the corridor of the trial chamber, which is a very long hallway which has all the different rooms connected to it. And up here you can even see a couple more new blocks. So there's the copper grates as well. And if you just pause it here, you can see that we will also be getting copper doors along with those new blocks next to the copper door. And as we'll see later, the copper doors can actually be opened just by hand and don't need a redstone signal. And so what they have mentioned is that this update will focus on combat adventures and tinkering. And so the combat adventures are definitely represented here in the trial chamber, and the tinkering we'll see more of later on as well. And so far we don't have a name for the update just yet, just like last time where we didn't have a name for the Trails and Tales update during Minecraft Live. And so here we can get a better look at those different decorative blocks. So we can see the deepslate top block as they call it, as well as the different copper blocks here. So there's the copper bulbs, which they look at here. And they are of course a new light source in the game. And we can also see the new copper grates as well. And we can see that they are mined using a pickaxe. And so of course all of those different copper blocks have the different oxidation states as well. So going from orange all the way up to that green color. And then here we can see that that copper door can actually be opened by just using your hand and doesn't need any redstone input. Now we do get a look at the chests inside of the trial chamber, but we don't get to see inside of the chest, so we don't know what kind of loot will be added in those trial chamber chests. And then here we can see another feature of those copper bulbs. If you remove the oxidation layers using an axe, it will actually make the copper bulbs brighter. So the less oxidation on the copper bulbs, the more light they will give off, and they will dim over time. So that actually means that after a while all of these copper bulbs will become incredibly dim if you don't wax them or if you don't remove the oxidation layers from those copper bulbs. And then the next feature is another block that generates inside of these trial chambers, and it's actually a trial spawner, which is a special type of spawner that only spawns in a certain number of mobs. And this number is actually greater if you play with more players. So in single player it will only spawn in a couple of mobs, and in multiplayer it will spawn in a whole lot more. It also has its own unique texture, as we just saw before, and we'll see again in a moment. And it also has a nice animation, as you can see right there. And so you might also have been able to spot a couple of ice blocks near the trial spawner, which actually means that this trial spawner will spawn in strays. And so we don't know what other kind of trial spawners we'll be getting in the trial chamber. But of course, if there's one for strays, we could assume that there's also one for husks. But we don't know yet, and so we'll have to wait and see until this structure gets added into the snapshots before we know what other kind of spawners can generate in the trial chamber. And so once you kill all the mobs from a trial spawner, it'll actually give you a reward. So here you can see both emeralds and diamonds generate from that trial spawner. And the smoke above the trial spawner, as you can see here, you can also look at the texture very nicely here. A smoke actually means that it is on a cooldown, and so no mobs will spawn from it while the smoke is coming out of the trial spawner. But after a while, this trial spawner will actually reset, and that means that you can fight those trades again and get even more rewards. So you want to make sure to not break this trial spawner, because of course you can get more rewards out of it later on. And of course you might also be able to make some sort of mob farm out of it for strays and husks and what other kind of mobs are added into these different trial spawners. And then this next shot in the video is actually quite interesting, because we can, I think, see a new block here, which are those deepslate walls. They don't look very familiar to me, so they are probably a new block, along with that new top block we saw before. I'm also not sure if these are the normal deepslate stairs, so these could be new stair blocks as well. But what is definitely new is something we see in the next shot. So here we can see actually the copper trapdoors. So along with the copper doors we saw in the trial chamber, there will also be new copper trapdoors. And I would assume that these can be oxidized in the same way as all the other copper blocks as well. And so I'm interested to see if these are the only two new copper blocks that were added, or if we also get stuff like copper buttons, copper pressure plates, and even more copper blocks. But we'll have to wait until the snapshot before we find out if there are any more new copper blocks. Then the next feature is something I think people will find very, very, very interesting, because it is actually a new block called the crafter, which pretty much does the same as a crafting table. However, it can be automated, so that is amazing. And so they first show off its basic use, where you open up the crafter and craft like normal, but don't take out the items, so in this case the cherry hanging signs. Then what you do instead is just close the inventory and place a button on top of the crafter, or just any kind of redstone signal. And once you push that button, it actually spits out the item, as you can see, just like a dropper would. So this on its own already sounds pretty amazing, but there is an extra feature which makes this crafter a very, very useful tool for auto crafting. And that is the ability to actually lock slots. So inside the crafter, if you click on these different slots in the crafter, you can lock them or disable them. And this means that if you put items in the crafter using a hopper, they actually cannot be placed in those disabled slots and only get placed in the other 3 slots, making auto crafting a whole lot easier. And during the stream they showed this off with a nice iron sword auto crafter, which has horrible redstone here. I assume redstone community will be able to come up with a whole lot better circuits. But we should pause here as well, because I think there's another new block here, which is the full block. That is also the block that the different walls are made up of, and those stairs probably as well. And so this is a completely new deepslate block. It looks something like a smooth deepslate block, and we can make bricks out of them, as you can see, and also stairs, walls, and all of these different types of blocks. And then finally they do return to the trial chamber, because there is one more new feature they want to announce here, which is a new hostile mob, which is actually called the breeze. And they actually call it a playful hostile mob that uses the wind to attack you. As you can see, it shoots out projectiles, and if they don't directly hit you, they will actually only push you back. But if they directly hit you, they will also do damage. And as you can see here, the breeze can actually jump very far as well between those different platforms. And here we can see the breeze also pushing players back when they get hit or nearly get hit. And so what is interesting is that this wind can actually also interact with the environment, which means that on a hit, it can activate both buttons, but also trapdoors, as we'll see in this clip right over here. Once the projectile hits, all of the trapdoors open and the players fall in right there. And so this means that the environment actually becomes part of the battle, because there are many different trapdoors inside of these different trial chamber rooms. And apart from activating buttons and trapdoors, the breeze can also activate dispensers shooting arrows. And then finally, indeed, the winner of the mob vote was the Armadillo. And so the penguin got 1,260,000 votes, which is 25.2%. The crab got 1,625,000 votes, which is 32.5%. And the winner, the Armadillo, got 2,150,000 votes, which accounts to 42.3%. And they also mentioned during the stream that the other mobs are not completely forgotten and could be added in future updates. And so there we go. That was everything that was announced during Minecraft Live 2023. Now keep in mind, this is not everything that's going to be added into the update, because they're doing it the same as last year, where during the live stream they just announced a few features, and then more features will come throughout the development process during the different snapshots. which I personally think is a great thing because it means that we can get more excited about snapshots and new features in them instead of knowing all the features beforehand already. And so of course, if you want to see these new features, the trial chambers, the crafter and the breeze in the game, then make sure you subscribe to my channel because of course I'll cover those snapshots once they come out as soon as possible. So you'll be among the first to see those new features in the game. That is pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, then please subscribe!